Good afternoon. Welcome to the Business, Finance, and Justice Committee meeting. Today is June the 9th, 2022. I call this meeting to order at 3 o'clock p.m. Invocation, Representative Hicks, if you would provide, please.
Thank you, Heavenly Father, for this day that you bless us with. Lord, we ask that you just have your hands and give us all hands upon this meeting. And Lord, we just ask that you let us do it to the best of our ability and for the best of our people. Lord, we just give you all grace and honor and just appreciate you and thankful for this day. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Representative Hicks. Roll call, Legislative Clerk Tracy Knobloch.
Patrick Freeman. Here. Sandra Golden.
Present.
Randall Hicks.
Present.
Thomasina Hannah Osborne.
Present.
Mark Randolph.
Present.
Madam Chair, you have 5 present and 0 absent.
We have 5 present and 0 absent. This constitutes a quorum. All business conducted will be official. Next item on the agenda is approval of minutes, May 12th, 2022. Committee, I'll entertain a motion when you're ready.
Madam Chair,
Ms. Golden,
I make a motion we accept the minutes with any changes that are necessary.
we have a motion from Representative Golden to approve the minutes with any changes necessary. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Representative Hicks. Discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Sandra Golden.
Yes.
Randall Hicks.
Yes.
Mark Randolph.
Yes.
Patrick Freeman.
Yes.
Madam Chair, you have 4 in favor, 0 against.
We have 4 in favor, 0 against. The minutes of May 12, 2022 are approved. Next item on the agenda is order of business. TR 22-101, a tribal resolution of the Muskogee Creek Nation authorizing the principal chief to submit a grant application to the U.S. Department of the Interior, Bureau of Indian Affairs, fiscal year 2022, Native American Business Development Institute, NABDI, grant for the Office of the Secretary of the Nation and Commerce. Sponsor, Representative Golden.
Motion for due pass.
We have a motion for due pass from Representative Golden. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Representative Hicks. Discussion, Representative Golden.
Yes, I think we have Zechariah Harjo or someone from the Office of the Secretary of the Nation.
Thank you. Mr. Harjo?
Yes, I am here. 1 second, sorry. Yeah, so this grant, we're going to put in an application for a feasibility study, particularly for the Loop Square Ranch property. Back in, or shortly after the acquisition of the property, leadership or the executive office had identified about 300 acres that the Department of Commerce would be able to use for economic development. One of the grants that we currently have to develop at least a portion of the Loop Square has moved forward with the EDA to the tune of about, I believe it's $2.3 million, if I remember correctly, or is it one? In any case, they discluded our request for feasibility funding, and the NABD grant would essentially replace that request and would really help us out to figure out, what type of economic development projects are going to be feasible on the Loop Square Ranch, as well as potentially other properties that the nation owns.
Committee, are there any questions? Representatives in attendance or online, any questions? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Sandra Golden.
Yes.
Randall Hicks.
Yes.
Mark Randolph.
Yes.
Patrick Freeman. Yes. Madam Chair, you have 4 in favor, 0 against.
We have 4 in favor, 0 against. TR 22-101 passes. NCA 22-059, a law of the Muskogee Creek Nation amending MCNCA Title 37, Chapter 3, Subchapter 8, entitled Drug-Free Workplace, and creating new subsection 3-813 entitled Medical Marijuana License Holder Protection and Non-Discrimination. Sponsor, Representative Randolph. And this was postponed from May the 12th, 2022.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to ask for it to be postponed another 30 days and having a struggle getting everybody together.
Thank you,
looking at some more
Representative Randolph.
policies.
We have a motion to postpone 30 days. Do I have a second?
Second.
30 days, Representative Randolph, or next meeting? Next meeting. We have a
Second.
second from Representative Hicks. Discussion? Hearing none. Roll call vote, please.
Mark Randolph.
Yes.
Patrick Freeman.
Yes.
Sandra Golden.
Yes.
Randall Hicks.
Yes.
Madam Chair, you have 4 in favor, 0 against.
We have 4 in favor, 0 against, to postpone NCA 22-059 until the next meeting. NCA 22-065, a law of the Muskogee Creek amending MCNCA Title 49, subsection 1-105, entitled Editorial Board. Sponsor, Sandra Golden.
Motion for due pass.
We have a motion from Representative Golden for due pass. Do I have a second? We have a second from Representative Freeman. Discussion? Representative Golden?
Yes, I tried to bring this up before, and I found, because I had found some more information, and I sent it out. And the first attachment to what I said was a letter that showed that the person that was on the board was acting as an attorney. And maybe that was because of the 2 people that were on the board could not be there because they don't live in Oklahoma. So I thought that was really important because we do need on-site oversight for our businesses, for personnel, for finance, and for overall, just in case there's problems with employees and things like that. Also, we always compare ourselves to other entities, other tribes that are around us to see what way they do things. And in the examples that I sent out, they don't have anybody on their board that's an attorney. And my understanding is that if a person is on the board, they cannot act as an attorney. They can only act as a board member. I have been on a board, and the chairperson is an attorney, and he has told the board that he cannot act as an attorney because it's unethical to do that. And I feel personally that we should not put anybody in that kind of situation because they could end up in some very bad trouble if they don't know any better. And the person that did this, I think somebody could turn him in and say he was acting out of order. He shouldn't have done that. And so that's why I brought this, because I said, we really need to think about what we're doing for our boards and get them up and running like they should be and get our personal stuff out of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Golden. Committee, any questions or discussion? Representative Hicks?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Golden, just got one question for you. Comment you just made, you said that you are on a board, or you served on a board, and you had another board member that was an attorney?
Yes. MNB.
So we have,
Clint
so he's an attorney on that board, yet
Yes.
you don't want an attorney on this board.
He's not required to be an attorney.
Okay.
What I'm trying to say is he is an attorney, but he's not required to be on.
Got you.
And when he has been asked legal questions, he has said, I can't act as an attorney because I'm a board member. So he knows that it's unethical for him to do that. And
Okay.
so,
Thank you, Ms. Golden.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Representative Randolph?
I don't have the position description in front of me, but I thought it was a background in Indian law. I don't remember it saying an attorney. And I would be interested if somebody could answer about freedom of press, about one of the reasons we put freedom of press in is so there would be no political interference. And so, how does that? Can anyone speak to that, to this bill? for this legislation that is a political, not you, Ms. Golden. I'm talking to somebody that's a lawyer.
Mr. Haskins?
Ms. Golden.
Sorry.
Mr. Dellinger, do you have any comments on this as well? You're free to speak after Mr. Haskins if you do. Thank you.
I apologize, ma'am.
Okay. Mr. Dellinger, if you would, please.
I was just,
question.
yeah, I was just looking at this legislation, and I know prior, when I don't know which time this bill came through before, um, the ladies that were on the editorial board were saying they didn't use him as a lawyer. That there was sometimes that there was certain information that he might be able to pass on to them. And I think Mr. Hoskins went and told us about, he can't be a lawyer and, all the consequences of that, which I understand, and I think the board understands. And so I'm just wondering, how does this come into play with freedom of press? I mean, is there any, can you speak to that at all?
I think it would still, if you make this change, that still allows you to, or allows the media to have that freedom of the press. And, I think the main idea was to try to create a separation so there's no political interference with the reporting of the news or anything related to the media.
Mm-hmm.
So I think even if you put someone on here who's not a lawyer, and I think the reason for the change is, as Representative Golden said, I don't think you want to put anyone in that position. Anybody could be on that board with good intent, and as a lawyer, be on that board with good intentions not to act as a lawyer. But when you're a lawyer, people always want to ask you questions and want your opinion and want to know. So I think to prevent anyone from being put in that position, and even the appearance of someone giving legal advice as a board member, I think it's probably a good idea to not make that a requirement or a recommendation, or excuse me, a requirement. And just to, as Representative Golden said with MNBE, the attorney on there, it's not a requirement. He just happens to be an attorney, but he's on the board, so there's no requirement under the law for that position. So, that is a difference between this. Here, it required that. And I think you just, to avoid the appearance of any impropriety, we as attorneys, have ethics. We could run into an ethical issue if we're on the board and acting as an attorney, as a board member. That's a no-no. So I think just to prevent from putting anyone in that position, is probably a good idea not to have someone on the board who's an attorney. And the board could have their own attorney, so separate from a board member. So I think that's how some of the other boards are set up, where they have their own legal counsel outside of the board who they've hired to provide legal advice. So I'm probably getting off track here, but I think
I appreciate your input, because it says one board member must have a background in tribal law. It doesn't say you must be a lawyer or you have to have a law degree. It says tribal law.
right.
Yeah,
I think
and
that's,
to me, that's pretty open. And
it's a little bit, it's not saying you have to be an attorney, but I think the inference from that is that it probably means a lawyer. That's what comes to people's mind, I think, at first, is that it's got to be a lawyer. Being in tribal law, I'm not sure what else that would mean other than an attorney. If you had someone in our office who was a legal assistant or a staff executive secretary, they're in tribal law, so to speak, but that doesn't, I think by implication, the idea is that they're going to know the law and be familiar because they've been around it or practiced it or been close to it. And so I just think, I think when you read that, that's the first thing that comes to someone's mind. But you are correct. It does not say a lawyer, but I think that's probably, I'm going to assume that was the intent to have somebody who is a lawyer who kind of knows law, so they can, kind of, when questions come up, maybe answer them based on that, but based on their experience, but not necessarily acting as a lawyer. But I think that really gets blurry there. The lines get blurred there a lot. And just to prevent anybody from being put in an ethical situation as an attorney, it's probably best not to have any reference to the tribal law or an attorney in the law. It's my thought.
Thank you, Mr. Dellinger. Any other questions from the committee? Mr. Haskins?
Apologize, and thank you all as always for letting me be here. I think the question that Representative Randolph was asking is whether controlling the qualifications or the requirements for someone to sit on the board, whether that steps over into violating the freedom of the press. And the answer to that is no. That is your responsibility to set out those qualifications for those who would be qualified to sit upon the board. And I'm going to step away from that for a second, and I'm going to say, I'm in my 60s. I've been practicing law for a long time. It's not my job to worry about anyone else other than the people that are here. But when you have that requirement for someone that has that legal background, if they're not a lawyer, for example, but they think they know the law, and a legal issue arises and they, through what they believe to be their knowledge, give legal advice, they've committed a crime. It's a misdemeanor. And they can be prosecuted for that very thing that we put in our requirements for them to have knowledge of. And as to an attorney, if an attorney crosses a line, the attorneys we're self-policing. And in fact, if an attorney commits an ethics violation and a lawyer does not report it to the State Bar Association, to the Oklahoma Supreme Court, this lawyer has committed an ethics violation because we are self-policing. So it's just a slippery slope. It's something that creates concern. And I know I've addressed this before, and I'm not trying to change anyone's minds one way or the other. It's just, as this old guy who's trying to look out for other people and young lawyers and make sure that they don't cross over into a boundary that they should not be in, that's my concern. And if they need legal advice, let them hire somebody. But that's really all I have to say. Thank you.
Let's see.
Thank you, Mr. Haskins. Representative Randolph?
Mr. Haskins, how many times can we bring up legislation back? Can you keep bringing the same legislation back? Do you have to change a word, or what is our rule on that?
Yeah, I think if it's altered, if it's changed, if it's different, but if your question is, can it be the identical same language each time? I think the answer is no. You can't just keep resubmitting the identical language. And I did not get a chance to look and see if this has some language change or if there's anything different from this from something that was considered before. And I apologize. I just didn't get a chance. I drove back from Oklahoma City and just did not have the opportunity to look at that issue.
Thank you, Mr. Haskins. Representative Hicks?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Dillinger or Kevin, either one of you can answer this question. I know Representative Randolph was saying it doesn't specifically say an attorney, but it just have tribal law as background. It brings me back to the attorney that's on the MNBE board. So if he's asked a question and if he gives his opinion, could one say he used his attorney opinion? So
It's based upon. The answer is yes. Yeah, and that's why having someone that's there that is a licensed attorney, them giving that answer has just put them in a really bad spot. So if you're relying upon your legal training and your legal expertise, and it's something that's based upon that training, yeah, you've given a legal opinion. And even though it's meant to be innocuous and it's not intended to be harmful, maybe even it's helpful, but it still crosses a line for lawyers that.
So even making the comment, I'm not acting as an attorney opinion.
The safe thing as an attorney would be, hey, that's a legal question, and we need to hire somebody to answer that very question for us because I should not go there. And it is unethical. All attorneys take the same ethics test. We have for many, many years. Actually, it's quite difficult to pass, but always the questions come up with regard to if you're serving on a board and a commission and you're a voting member and a legal issue arises, can you voice your opinion? And the answer is no, you cannot. And the punishment could range from anywhere from public suspension, if you will, from the practice of law for some period of time. If the suspension is over a period of 2 years, you got to retake the bar exam. If you get disbarred, you never get to take the bar exam. Again, you're looking for a new line of work. You could get a private reprimand, a public reprimand. It's just up to the Supreme Court justices to make that determination. You know, the good news for everybody is Mariam Opala is no longer on the state Supreme Court because he voted to disbar everybody for everything. Anytime an ethics issue arose, he was really hard on people. But that's just my concern. And I'm being an old guy looking out for somebody else. Because if a young lawyer just doesn't know where that boundary is, and you know, Representative Golden was talking about another attorney who's on another board and says, hey, I'm not going there because I'm not going to subject myself to being disbarred. And it's just an expression of a concern. And again, that's a different issue because part of you wants to say, well, as a lawyer, you should know that. You should know not to open your mouth and voice an opinion that's based upon your legal training and experience. You should not. You should know that.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Representative Hicks? You good?
I'm good.
I have a question, and this question is for Mr. Crofts. If you don't mind, Mr. Crofts, do you have any board members, or do all of your board members, do they reside in the state of Oklahoma?
Yes, they do.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions from the committee? Representative Randolph?
Mine is, excuse me, mine isn't so much a question as the last time we met on this legislation, we had Miss Rebecca Lansbury, we had Angel Ellis, and they explained to us that they weren't on this board acting as a lawyer. They used their legal background and their knowledge of what, like if there was something coming, what was coming up next on a court. It was basically having that knowledge. They weren't having them represent them as a lawyer. To me, they explained that very eloquently. They let us know that they don't have the money to get themselves a lawyer, or if they did, they would take one, but they just need somebody that has some knowledge about law and tribal law, but they're not asking them to speak as a lawyer. And so I understand, I hear everything you all saying, but what they said to us last time, I'm going to stick with. They're on the board. I feel like they know what they're doing and what's best for the board. So thank you.
Thank you, Representative Randolph. Last question, Representative Hicks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think as Representative Randolph stated, at the last meeting, I did ask the sponsor if she did speak to the board last time, and her response was no. So I'll ask that same question this round. Did you speak to the board itself to see what their needs are or aren't?
I looked at other boards and the information that I sent you. I talked to the attorney. I talked to the attorney that's on the board that I'm ex officio with. And like I said, in the past, he has said any question, legal questions, I can't answer that. The board already has their attorney. And I asked him about this, whether this was a good idea or not, and he said that it was a good idea. So I don't think that asking the board what they think is the best, because they don't write our laws, we do. And we have to look at everything, not just certain people because we like them or we think they know what they're doing. They may know what they're doing, but other boards don't. So we have to look at it as a whole and try to get all of these boards in working order like they should be. And this is why I did this, and this was why I put the effort into it. Thank you.
Might I respond to that?
Sure, go ahead.
I appreciate your time and effort for that in going out and speaking to an attorney on a different board, but you still had that opportunity to speak to the board that you're changing the legislation for. So you should have spent some, my opinion is you should have spent time and energy speaking with the board that you're trying to make changes for to get their opinion instead of somebody else. But just my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, committee. Representatives in attendance, any questions? Or representatives online?
Madam Chair, Will Lowe.
Speaker Lowe, go ahead.
Thank you, ma'am. I just want to say that, this attorney that formerly was on this board actually did give an official opinion as an attorney, and we have the actual document in the council. So I just want you all to know that that line was crossed, and just for your information, Mado.
Okay, I just want to make one comment also. It's important to me, and I have said that this in regards to anytime that we change legislation, I think it is very important that you go to the source. They are the professionals, they know what they're doing, they do it day in and day out. So I just wanted to make that comment. Thank you. Roll call vote, please.
Yes, Chairman.
Oh, Representative Harjo.
Yes, I was just sitting here listening, and and I was listening to the lawyers speak, and they were making statements that this seems like it's a lawyer, but there again it just says tribal law background, and there's degrees that you can go just to get a background in tribal law, not necessarily become a lawyer. And some of the things that was expressed to us at the last meeting was that they would go to them for definition of words and an understanding of what a word may mean and everything. And those were things that they were helping them in writing their papers and everything. And so again, even though this gentleman was a lawyer that was on here previously, maybe he did cross that barrier, but that's not what the qualifications are asking for. And if they would really want to go into great detail, it doesn't say a lawyer. Now, I could understand if it said a lawyer, but it's not. It just says with tribal law background. And so in no way or form or fashion can I take those words and reshape them and say it says a lawyer, or write them into saying we want a lawyer. And so when you look at it in those terms, well then I seen it how it was written. It just says tribal law background because it never did say lawyer. So I didn't take it that way. And so, that's why when I look at this from what was explained and expressed last time, that, again, I'm wondering because now all of a sudden I also see that this legislation was more about those people who resided outside of Oklahoma, but yet at the same time, we were still scratching through the qualifications for tribal law background. And if that was the truth, that we would just want people to be in state to be on this board, well, then they should have left that qualification in. But it was still scratched out. So again, I have to disagree with this. So I appreciate you for allowing me to speak. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Representative Harjo. Roll call vote, please.
Sandra Golden? Yes. Randall Hicks?
No.
Mark Randolph?
No.
Patrick Freeman?
Yes.
Since there's a tie, you'll have to vote.
My vote is no.
So, Madam Chair, I have 2 in favor, 3 against. It fails.
We have 2 in favor, 3 against. NCA 22-065 fails. NCA 22-075, a law of the Muskogee Creek Nation amending MCNCA Title 27, Chapter 1, entitled Authorities, Jurisdiction, and Applicable Law by adopting the standards, rights, and responsibilities defined by the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990, the ADA Amendment Act of 2008, and the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, requiring that all services offered by the Muskogee Creek Nation are accessible to its citizens with disabilities. Sponsor Sandra Golden.
Motion for due pass.
We have a motion for due pass from Representative Golden. Do I have a second? Do I have a second? We have a second from Representative Freeman. Discussion, Representative Golden.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I worked with Mr. Haskins on this. One of the things that came to my attention was several people in the southern area who are in wheelchairs. And some of them say when they come to the complex, there is not that much accessibility, or when they need services, their disability isn't taken into consideration. And so this is just to amend what we already have to make sure that everybody looks at what we do have and make sure that it's accessible. Americans with Disabilities Act, so that we don't leave those citizens out. Not all of them are seniors. Some of them are younger people having not just physical disabilities, but others disabilities as well. And so I think our programs need to be more cognizant of people with disabilities. And so I asked Mr. Haskins to help change this so that we would be compliant with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Golden. Are there any questions for Ms. Golden? Representative Randolph?
Was human resources involved in this?
Excuse me?
Was human resources involved in this?
We just looked at what's already written with human resources.
I'd like to give some time to Melissa Coley if I could.
Ms. Cully? Have you been able to see NCA 22-075 to discuss?
I apologize, but I have not. I'm filling in for Mr. Janicek this afternoon, but I personally have not read it.
Representative Randolph?
I like the idea. I like the origin. I think it's great, but I'd like to just make sure HR has some input and that that's communicated together.
Representative Golden?
Yes, most of the federal programs, federal dollars that we receive, we sign a statement that says we follow American with Disabilities Act. And so that's probably already in there, that they already do. Like I said, we just looked at what's already there and made sure that everybody knows that it's in everything that we have is concurrent with the American Disabilities Act, because it's supposed to be. So any federal monies that we get, we already tell them, just like we say on employment. When we get those dollars, we say that we are compliant with those laws. So this is to make sure that we do.
Thank you, Ms. Golden. Any other questions from the committee? I just have one question, Ms. Golden. Can you kind of break it down for me? Are we talking like entrances, doors, for all of our facilities? Is that what you're talking
That's
about?
part of it, yes. Facilities, services. When we get dollars, it says we have to have sidewalks. Those are all physical things, but also people have hearing problems, and some of us don't have the telephones that we should have to work with people who have hearing problems, those who have speech problems. Those are all disabilities. And so, like I said, when we get those funds, we say that we serve all people and we have all those available to all of those people. And if we don't, we need to have them.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the committee?
I mean, even blind.
Representative Hicks?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The only question or concern that I would have is the cost. I know Ms. Golden's saying that it's maybe in the grant application it's in there, but we don't know what all buildings are accessible or parking. I mean, the list could go on and on.
So I want to clarify, I think what you're saying. So the monies that we receive from from these people here, we're saying we're going to accommodate everyone, hearing, physical, blind, whomever. So we're saying this.
We're saying we do.
But are we doing it? And so the question is not.
We don't know if we're not or not. We know that some things are and some things aren't, but this is just to make sure that we're compliant.
Okay, thank you.
And it may cost money down the line. Somebody may say, well, we have everything else, but we don't have something for someone who's blind. Or we don't have something for someone who can't speak for themselves. So when we find that out, some of the programs are saying we don't have that. Maybe they'll come forward and say these are services that we can't provide because those people we don't have that for them.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Golden. Representative Randolph?
I'd like to ask the sponsor if she'd be willing to postpone for a month, just so we can make sure that there's input, we can look at the budget, that we can work with human resources, and that there would be a combined effort on this. I'd feel a whole lot better. I'm supportive of it, but there's just some questions that I'd like to see be answered before I go
Thank you,
forward.
Representative Randolph. Ms. Golden?
Yes, I actually I had a couple of people that were going to come and talk, but I don't know that he could get transportation because he has to have a something that lifts his wheelchair, and he has to get through those doors, and he has to get down these steps. And then there's another one that's in the hospital, but he did just get out. But they were willing to come forward and talk about the accessibility for their physical problems. But yes, if you would like to postpone it and get more information, I'm all for it. Like I said, this was to make sure that we're compliant in everything all around here for all of our citizens, because they're not invisible. They're citizens just like us, and they have a right to have what we have.
Make a motion to postpone till the next meeting.
We have a motion from Representative Randolph to postpone until the next meeting. Do I have a second? We have a second from Representative Freeman. Discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Mark Randolph.
Yes.
Patrick Freeman.
Yes.
Sandra Golden.
Yes.
Randall Hicks.
Yes.
Madam Chair, you have 4 in favor, 0 against.
We have 4 in favor and 0 against to postpone NCA 22-075 until the next meeting. Okay, that concludes the order of business. Next item on the agenda is referred legislation. Ms. Kilian, we have NCA 22-074. Would you provide a funding source, please?
Yes, Madam Chairman. It will be economic development and land acquisition.
Okay, the funding source is economic development and land acquisition. Do I have a motion from the committee to approve the funding source? We have a motion from Representative Hicks to approve the funding source. Do I have a second? We have a second from Representative Golden. Discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Randall Hicks.
Yes.
Mark Randolph.
Yes.
Patrick Freeman.
Yes.
Sandra Golden.
Yes.
Madam Chair, you have 4 in favor, 0 against.
We have 4 in favor, 0 against. The funding source for NCA 22-074 is economic development and land acquisition. That concludes our referred legislation. Next item on the agenda is other business. That is MNGE, GOAB, and Mr. Crofts, I see you on the line.
Madam Chair, this is Chairman Ray.
Chairman Ray, go ahead, please.
Thank you. Can you hear me just fine?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Since our last BF&J committee report that we gave on May the 12th, we have reopened the Muskogee Casino that took place on May the 19th following a 2-week closure due to a flooding event. The remediation of that property consisted primarily of drying out the facility, replacing carpeting. We also had to replace some sheetrock, cabinetry, and some fixtures. We completed this using a professional remediation company as well as our internal staff members there at that site. All work was performed and tested and signed off on by an independent industrial hygienist for cleanliness and air quality before we reopened that facility. The financial impact because of that 2-week closure was a loss of revenue of approximately about $2 million, all physical damages and remediation, related to that event will be covered by our insurance policies, and those claims are currently in process. And then our BI, or business interruption insurance, will cover loss of income except for the first 24 hours that we were closed, because the insurance policy has a 24-hour waiting period before it goes into effect. We're currently in the process of accumulating costs and evaluating the timing and feasibility for possible reopening of the travel plaza there at Muskogee. Extensive remodeling and refurbishment will be required for that in that respective facility based on recent environmental and facility studies. The old Moggy Travel Plaza Casino reopened on May the 17th. It was renovated with new carpeting, lighting, painting, and other refurbishments prior to that reopening. And then the complete refurbishment and rebranding of the the Okmulgee convenience store / travel plaza was completed earlier this year. As it relates to COVID cases, they're still very minimal, and there's no disruption to our customer service or to our staffing levels at this time. Interest savings resulting from the swap agreement that the National Council and the nation approved with our banks back in February. It's projected at about 1.5 million for this fiscal year, and that'll increase to a little over 3 million for the next fiscal year. And that's based on rate increases projected by the Fed through the remainder of this calendar year. If there are any additional increases by the Federal Reserve, our savings will increase even more. We continue working on expansion and replacement projects to increase revenues and distributions to the nation. Currently, we're updating costs and feasibility studies to evaluate the timeline of the commencement of the new Eufaula Casino project, which will be located across from the Eufaula Health Clinic there on Highway 69. Our May financial statements, since this meeting is occurring so early in the month, our financial statements for May have not been completed, and the books will actually close for a few more days. Once that's completed, financial results and the tribal employment summaries will be forwarded to the committee and to the nation's leadership. Due to the Muskogee Casino's 2-week closure, we'll definitely have lower income and distributions than prior year. But those losses were offset by River Spirit. It performed exceptionally strong during the month of May because the PGA tournament and other large events in that respective area sort of offset those revenue losses. So our distribution to the nation for the month of May should be at or near our budget for that respective month. Business levels for this month, for June, so far through the first 8 days, the trends continue to show revenues just a little bit slightly lower than last year, but last year was a record year, and we are above our budgeted projections. So business levels remain very, very positive. We are also working with Bobby Howard and the nation's emergency management department and the Army Corps of Engineers and some other outside consultants on the development and design of the flood mitigation plan, primarily for River Spirit Casino in case of future water releases similar to the flood of 2019. A conceptual plan has been developed and incorporated into the nation's emergency response plan. And we are now starting the actual design and implementation plan. And just want to remind everyone, this is a multi-phase and a multi-year process. And then in conclusion, I wanted to let the BF&J committee know that the MNGE board selected the 5th board member for that respective board. The board selected Stacy Matthews. Stacy Matthews is from Yukon, Oklahoma. She has a bachelor's degree in business administration from Oklahoma Wesleyan University and a master's degree in human services administration from the University of Oklahoma. She has 9 years of gaming experience as both an internal auditor and a financial analyst. She currently works for the University of Oklahoma Health Administration as a financial systems analyst, and she was selected by board resolution at our last meeting. The board's really looking forward to working with her. She gives what she brings to the board that we were lacking is someone that has a lot of practical experience as far as the day-to-day operations inside a gaming operation is concerned. So Ms. Stacy Matthews is the fifth board of director selected to MNG LLC. And Madam Chair, I have Mr. Crofts with me. So if there are any questions from the committee or representatives online, we'll be more than happy to try to answer those. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Are there any questions? Representatives online or representatives in attendance, any questions? No questions, sir. We appreciate you being with us. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you, ma'am.
Next item on the agenda is announcements. Are there any announcements? Hearing none. Next item on the agenda is adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn? We have a motion to adjourn from Representative Golden. We have a second from Representative Randolph. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, same sign. Representative Freeman, would you provide the benediction, please? Thank you, Representative Freeman. We are adjourned at 3:47.